Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Jimen Marrero from Urbender, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU. Welcome, everybody. And this is a very, very special episode of I Have Something to Say, because when you talk about agents of change and you think about visionary programs and when you think about impact on community, it's you meet people, right? But then you meet people, and I'm just so ecstatic to have today as our guest Donna Ennis. She's the director of diversity engagement and program development at the Enterprise Innovation Institute at Georgia Tech, and welcome, Donna. I'm so thrilled that you've joined me today to have this conversation about the Southeast MBDA Growth Hub and Business Growth Hub and what we're working on. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Sammy. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I really appreciate your inviting me here to share this opportunity, what we're working on at Georgia Tech and through the Minority Business Development Agency. And thank you for being a part of our team. You've brought so much value to this project, to this big vision project. So I look forward to talking about it.
Yes, I'm so excited. And let's just take a step back. Who would have thunk, right? Who would have thunk that in the spring of 2020, when all this madness with the pandemic happened, I tell Shalon that, you know what, let's drive up to meet Lakeisha. And then we meet Lakeisha Merritt, dear friend, French Merritt, dear friend. And then she says, well, why don't we meet, at Georgia Tech, and I can introduce you to Miss Donna Ennis. And then we had such a great, inspiring conversation. I was just like in awe. I'm like, oh my goodness, when I grow up, I want to be this woman, right? And then, which meaning you. And then we drive back to Florida. And who would have thought that we'd like wind up, working on this vision that you have, to really empowering, developing community with diverse business owners, Black and Brown business owners in the Southeast. And it's just been such an honor to be part of your team and working so closely and learning in that process too, about how this works and how we can make a difference. And just tell me how did you land in Georgia Tech? And the second thing is, how did you see this RFP that went out, right? How did this all come about? And you're like, wait a second, we can do this. How did this all happen?
Yeah. It's quite a story how I landed where I am. I mean, I can go way back to the beginning, if you will. Coming out of college, I started in book publishing. Worked there for years in and out of New York. I left there and actually joined a startup. And at the time, we were marketing and selling automatic telephone dialers. That's the prelude to the computer making the phone call. So that tells you how far back I go here. And lost the shirt off my back. I mean, I lost all of my savings. Failed forward as many entrepreneurs did, and took a job. And I was in Washington, D.C. That's where I'm from originally. Went to school in Boston and decided, it was time to leave. I just wanted to live somewhere else. So I moved to Atlanta. My roommate from college lived here and said, come on down. And I love the university environment. So I said, if I'm going to work in Atlanta in a university, I have two universities, public, I'd have to work for Georgia Tech, private. I'd have to work for Emory. And I ended up at Georgia Tech, sort of restarted, rebooted my career. And years later, I worked with where I am now, the Enterprise Innovation Institute. It used to be the Economic Development Lab. So we've kind of grown together over the
Mhm.
last 30 years at Georgia Tech.
Wow.
Started out in their manufacturing program and then ended up helping them build a center. And one of our business development people brought the proposal for us to start to look at this minority business development agency. And at the time, I said, "Hey, if we're gonna, I would love to be able to serve the minority business community. And what better place to serve it than at Georgia Tech? There's so many resources and expertise, so much resources and expertise. We need to have that here." And so we wrote the proposal sight unseen, won it, and in 2004 launched the MBDA Business Center, Georgia MBDA Business Center. Here we are years later, and really have been blessed and excited and passionate about being able to serve this community. And so, to your question about how did we end up with the Growth Hub, it is a grant from the Minority Business Development Agency. And as you know, MBDA is the only federal agency out of the Department of Commerce that was established in the late 60s, specifically to grow and strengthen minority owned businesses. And so they released an opportunity to have actually what we called, as you remember, Sammy, it was called the Inner City
Yes.
Innovation Hub. We wrote the proposal, and they were offering two awards for an innovation hub. And honestly, I don't know. I can only give it divine inspiration about the vision for the hub, because I recognize that there are so many entrepreneur ecosystems, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But there's so many entrepreneur ecosystems throughout the country, let alone in Georgia or Florida or the Southeast. And our entrepreneurs and business owners really are on a journey. And we've heard through the research that that journey can be somewhat frustrating. And so Divine Inspiration said, "Hey, is there a way for us to connect these ecosystems?" And here we are a year later with
I
our
know.
Southeast Business Growth, MBDA Business Growth Hub.
That's fantastic. I can only imagine that your experience as a startup, when you first started and it didn't go anywhere, right? But
Mhm.
those lived experiences, I'm sure, have been valuable to you in really understanding maybe the angst and also the process, right? Like the do's and don'ts of establishing a business. And so, do you feel that that's been um, a valuable part of the work that you've been doing for the past 3 decades
Oh
over
yeah.
here?
Oh, it definitely has. It definitely has. I jumped into entrepreneurship before it was popular to be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
really, we were just really trying to build a business and
Yeah.
didn't have near the amount of tools and techniques and resources that we have today. And so it is, and thank you for saying it is part of my lived experiences. So I think about that often, and I always said, well, I'll go back to being an entrepreneur at some point, but I feel
Mhm.
as though that, there are entrepreneurs. And so here I
Mhm.
am helping the business community and the entrepreneur community, which has really been an awesome experience, because I've learned so much over the last 15, almost 20 years now since we've had this center, just being in the trenches with our
Mhm.
companies and really experiencing a lot of, at least living vicariously through you guys, experiencing
Yes.
quite a bit of what we read about, talk about, hear about. I can say that I've lived it with a lot of our clients and our companies.
That's fantastic. I
Yeah.
wanted to take a deeper dive into this project, right? Into this pilot program. I love when you say that. Well, how do you say always to our teams? You also always say, "Oh, we're building it as we're flying it,"
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, and I love that
Yeah.
because it's true. So many times people sit on ideas or wait for the right moment or for the right partners or what have you to start, to start moving. And you've created this team that that's really creating and calibrating as we go along, and just being mindful of every step to really, I think the end goal is to create that connection, that connectivity, and that support system amongst minority entrepreneurs in the Southeast. And
Mhm.
could you tell me a little bit about the key players of the like that three pronged approach, or that three-legged stool, with the three different institutions that are part of this, and what they're taking on as their general scope of work, right? To then
Mhm.
create this whole, like this whole program or this whole pilot.
Yeah. So initially, when the inspiration and vision came, I knew that we had to have a really good, strong team, and I envisioned us having a, a some kind of connectivity where we would again connect the entrepreneurial ecosystems throughout the Southeast. And I recognize that there are a couple of different major, what we're calling lanes. One was our historically black college and university or minority serving institution lane. And so we brought in Morehouse Center for Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And then I thought about the entrepreneur lane or the business owner lane. And of course, I thought about Chronology with Lakeisha French and her team. I know you're on her team because I've worked with her over the years, and she does quite a bit of work globally around innovation and entrepreneurship. And then we have at Georgia Tech, we have a Advanced Technology Development Center, which we call
Mhm.
ATDC, which is the oldest incubator, a high tech incubator. And one of the things we wanted to look at was how could we bring more Black, Indigenous, and people of color BIPOC founders into a tech incubator where historically, when those incubators sit inside of predominantly white institutions, our BIPOC founders may not gravitate to those incubators, and thus they don't experience or take advantage of the resources, or for many reasons, which we'll talk about later, they may not feel welcome or be welcomed. So we
Mhm.
wanted to see how we could break down that barrier. And then, of course, we have our business center, the MBDA Business Center, as part of the Georgia Tech team. So you have Georgia Tech, you have Morehouse, and we have Chronology as the three partners in this vision. And we've spent the last year doing the research. I should say, you guys have spent the last year doing the research and finding out all the different things that are happening as our entrepreneurs engage on this journey. In the HBCU MSI lane, we're really focusing on student programs for entrepreneurship and how we can engage more students and more faculty in that community into entrepreneurship. And of course, your lane, which you work on with Chronology, is really focused on entrepreneurs and business owners. Now, why do I separate the two, Sammy? Because I say all business owners are what? Entrepreneurs, but all entrepreneurs are not business owners. And
Yep.
so this hub is for all business owners from ideation through maturity. And we're still working on the project now. One of my team members, our project manager, Brandy Nagel, we were talking about it one day, and she said, you have to realize that this is a startup, right? And I said,
Yes.
it is. So we've looked at this project as a startup, and Sammy's been intricately involved with Chronology and Morehouse and Georgia Tech, and we are proving the concept. We're going through our proof of concept phase to see if it works. And we had a launching last week, which was
Yes.
highly successful. We've identified a platform, and when we wrote the proposal together, we had, let me see, COVID had just started. I
Yes.
think it was around April or something like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So
It
we
was,
had
yeah,
no
April, May.
idea. Yeah,
Mhm.
we had no idea that a year later, a year and a half later, we would
Mhm.
still be sitting here in the virtual world. We had all of this, these ideas about connecting the incubators and business centers throughout the Southeast and going, our clients and companies going to visit them in person and
Yes.
events and things like that. Remember, Sammy? And look at us
Yes.
now.
Totally.
We're in the
Yes.
virtual world doing the same thing.
Correct.
So last week we had over 120 um, um, business owners, entrepreneurs, founders, organizations, entrepreneurial service organizations, HBCUs on the line last week, showing them the concept and
Mhm.
the platform, and getting their feedback, doing a little bit of customer discovery to see
Yes.
if we're on the right track. And from all intents and purposes, the feedback we got is that we are on the right track, and now we're just ready to move forward to put together the pilot project to see if this concept actually will work.
Yes.
Very exciting, very exciting. Every time I
Oh,
talk about
I can't even. I mean, during the annual convening of a couple of weeks ago, it was just so inspiring to hear and when you saw the entrepreneurs writing comments about
comments, yes.
how helpful, right? Connecting with entrepreneurs from other states even, right?
Hmm.
Has been so
Hmm.
beneficial, but also learning from each other too, because as you mentioned, since we have entrepreneurs of color in different stages, what I don't know, maybe the one that's a little bit more advanced than me, right, can help me out with. And it's
That's right.
really just about sharing. It's like a brain trust, right? Just
Right.
exchanging ideas, support, connecting people, like, hey, you may want to call this person, or
That's right.
hey, do you need help with the business plan? And so it's just been very encouraging to see how vested people are in the process, and the resources that they've been able to access by just showing up to the connection sessions that Morehouse has put together, that we've had put together, and that we put together together.
Together.
So
And at ATDC, now we have an MBDA at ATDC lane. We have
yeah,
your lane, which is the entrepreneur lane. We have the HBCU lane. And you guys have been working really hard over the last year to pull together that community and have these connection sessions on a regular basis so that we can create a sense of community. So when we bring the lanes together into what I call the hub, because
yes,
it's like the spokes, and then bring them together in the hub. We've already, created some sense of community, and now we're working on how can we bring those communities together to one big community. So I
yes,
do admit that it's a lofty goal. It's very lofty, but you have to dream big and see big. What do they say? Shoot
yeah,
for the
yeah, yeah,
stars,
yeah.
and if you miss,
It's like go
you
big or
shoot for the
go home.
moon. That's what it is. Shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you'll be amongst the stars. So
Or as they say, go big or go home.
go big or go home. That's right. You know, or we could go on and on. Don't jump off the porch if you can't run with the big dogs.
Exactly, exactly. There's so many sayings that
That's right.
apply to the
That's right.
situation. I'm
Yes.
just I was just so in awe of the support of the what we're calling the anchor organizations, right? And the support letters. And every time I wish I could be a fly on the wall and listen in to those conversations that you're having with other organizations, right, that are very powerful in their own right, and that can bring
Hmm.
substance, right, to this
Hmm.
thing. How what is the vibe in those spaces when you start those initiate those conversations that lead to like the letter of commitment and then showing up also? What how does that go
It
happen?
goes well. It goes first of all. It goes really well. I would be remiss if I didn't say, Accenture joined the team once we sat down. We do have an individual, as Kirk Barnes, who's handling
Yeah,
our corporate
amazing.
partnerships. So, he's talking with corporations again to see if this is a viable project and idea. Which, again, all confirmations is that it is. I think the time is right. I think um, it's time for new and different ways of doing things.
Mhm.
And I think that we know that a lot of these ecosystems operate in silos. And from where I sit, uh, so many things that historically have changed over the last few years. Everything from the social justice movements to the climate disasters to COVID and the pandemic. It's just it's a new day, and I
Yeah.
think when we sit and talk with these what we're calling our anchor institutions, and supporters like a Accenture, which is huge corporation. They too have initiatives where they're reaching people of color, BIPOC, founders or business owners, and they're all of us, I think, are craving a way to reach more in a substantive way. So one of the
Hmm.
things that I always say when we talk with people, it's like we're not trying to build another website, we're not trying to do another resource directory. I think there are plenty of great ones out there for people. We really want to build something that's living and breathing and active for our community, something that they have contributed, that the community has contributed to. And so we're
Yes.
meeting their needs as opposed to, oh, let's just build it and they'll come. Those days are over. We want to make
Yeah.
sure that as we build it, you know, you out there in the world will keep coming and telling us
Yeah.
what more we need. What do we need? What's working? What's not working? And I think the more we have that kind of connectivity, the more the hub will live and breathe.
Yes. I love that. And I love that there's it's like this family, right? Like we have this family and everybody knows, like it's like you're like the mama bear and you tell everybody, okay, everybody knows what you need to be doing, and then
Yes,
come back and check in. And so like you mentioned Kirk, for example, right? So he's out there focused on the sustainability piece, right? Because if we're
that's right.
able to prove that this works, well, then
That's
where's
right.
the moolah to
That's
cover
right.
it, right? And to
That's right.
expand it and
And
to expand
expand
it
it.
into other territories. But it's so awesome every time we have that touch point and we're able to share, oh, this happened and this happened. It's like you're weaving, right? This massive thing, and it's really coming to life. And I'm just tickled pink, to be
Yeah, I
part of
think
it.
yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned that because I too, have my moments that all business owners and entrepreneurs have. It's like, are you crazy? Do you think this is really going to work? And then just as I get there, I get confirmation from someone, some organization, and I
Yeah,
calm down. So I too understand the startup, feeling
yeah,
that okay. And another thing I told Brandy, our program manager, when I said, I'm going to have to manage my emotions much like an entrepreneur would manage his or her emotions about their business, because right when you start and grow your business, that's your baby, right? So
yeah,
the thought that hey, maybe your baby's not going to work out, you don't want to hear it.
yeah,
So one day I had her laughing because I was like, wow, I have to be prepared for the community to say, Donna, this is not going to work. Now, do I want to hear that? No, but I have to be prepared that hey, we're in a proof of concept. Remember,
yeah,
so it's a go no go, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and so of course we're working hard. All of us are working hard to get a go instead of a
yeah.
no go.
Well, I have to thank you. I have to thank you on behalf of the entire team, and I think I could speak for Dr. Bussy and everybody else
Thank
too.
you.
In saying that you've allowed us to be creative.
Thank you.
You didn't from the get-go set any strict parameters. You just provided some, how do you say, some, like, vision, right? Like a
Mhm.
general vision, but you weren't attached to anything, right? So it's like, again, like children, right? That you
Mhm.
kind of have to guide them along and give them some parameters, right? Some general parameters, because it is an RFP, it is a grant, it is something that you kind of have to align with. But I really have to, thank you for giving us the kind of freedom to plant seeds, to take on, these different roles and come back and report, and then you course correct if needed. But there really hasn't been a lot of that either, right? The one thing you did challenge us to was to break free from this idea of a directory of, or like a
Yeah,
Slack channel,
I know
or like,
that was a little hard, but it
or
worked.
yeah, And so it was like, what is she talking about, right? And so, but it was great
Yeah,
because you gave us permission to dream big,
yeah,
to take it there, to jump off that cliff, like to hold hands and come on, it's gonna be okay. Just let's hold hands and let's just jump off this cliff together and it's gonna be all right. And by doing that, I don't think it's gonna fail. I don't think we're ever going to come back because everyone had input in this. The very community, right, that we're trying to serve
yeah,
is building this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you bring up an important point. I'm here, for direction and guidance and to keep us on course with the vision so
Mhm.
we don't stray too far away because you know how it is out here in the world when you got all these creatives together and all these smart creatives. It's like, okay, let's bring it back.
Yeah.
However, and this is something to all the business people out there and entrepreneurs out there is you have to trust your team. You first have to make sure you have a good team. I think a
Mhm.
lot of times founders and entrepreneurs and business owners struggle because of the team, and once you are begin to build your company and you build a good team, you have to trust the team. You have to let it go. And I knew from the very beginning that I had picked the best team. So
Mhm.
it's Donna. Okay, well, Donna, you if you're going to make this work, you have to let them do
Mhm.
what you hired them to do, right?
Yeah.
You have to let them be who they are. And so I think that that's really what's really gotten us going. That's not to say we didn't all have some bumpy roads where we were trying to figure it out, but hey, that's part of the process when you're creating something that's never been done.
Yes, absolutely. And everyone's just so amazing. It's like, between Blanca and Nakia and just everybody, Brandy, just
Yes.
everybody's just so spectacular
We really
that
are.
it's like I love
We
every
really have a major team of
yeah, it's
players. I
like
mean,
amazing. It's like
it
epic.
really
It's
is.
just, I
It
think
really
this is
is.
one of honestly one of the most epic things I've been involved in. And so
Oh, really?
yeah, so it's definitely an honor and a privilege, yes, to be
Yeah.
part of this project. And I can't wait. I can't wait now. The
Well, let me
big
just say this before you go. When we found the labs, which is the platform we were planning to use, and when Accenture came on board, that's when I think I had true confirmation that we were headed in the right direction because, Tiffany from Accenture and Kylan and that group, they wouldn't take on something like this if they didn't think it was something there. That's
yeah.
not again. We still have to prove the concept, but they people wouldn't waste their
Yeah.
time. And then when we found the labs, which is Farrah Allen's platform, and it just came to life, everybody was like, "That's it. That's what we're trying to do." And so I think the more we can bring the visual part of the vision to the community, the more people will understand. They'll get it. They can get it when they see it. They like, okay,
Mhm.
now I understand what it is we're trying to do.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I was going to ask you about. So I know that the annual convening there was this, and I'm so glad that so many entrepreneurs and so many collaborators came to see it
Hmm.
right in the flesh. What this platform is going to look like. Again, it's not a website; it's an interactive
Hmm.
um, tech virtual space, if you
Hmm.
will,
Hmm.
for the sharing of information and resources and entrepreneurial support that's culturally sensitive. I mean, I was just like, what is this? And I know that
Yeah.
it's in its inception, but it was so powerful that I could see it. I could totally see it, smell it, taste it. It was just amazing. Could you please share, right, with our viewers exactly what the purpose of this online space is going to be and how it's going to serve the BIPOC entrepreneur community.
Great question. So, one of the major things that we realized early on, and even I would say chronology uh, validated the hypothesis, is that it, our business owners and entrepreneurs are everybody's on a journey, and I mentioned that earlier. However, the journey gets really frustrating because they find themselves bouncing around, trying to figure out who to connect to, what resources are good, where are the programs, where are the entrepreneur support organizations, what entrepreneur support organizations are best for their particular company, and thus they spend a lot of time, and time is money,
Mm-hmm.
and so the major challenge that we have for our hub is to create a space where business owners and entrepreneurs can enter, and we can help reduce the time it takes to move through your journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
instead of it taking you 6 months to get to, say, Donna Ennis's group at Georgia Tech, it may only take you
Yeah.
1 month, okay?
Right.
And you get right to what you need, when you need it, how you need it. We also see it as a way to open up exposure to all of these entrepreneurial service organizations that are out here that may be limited by their location, probably by their
Mm-hmm.
location. And we can see from the pandemic, the virtual world has opened up the world to us, right?
Yeah.
So, I am a really strong food uh, uh, program, a program for food entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm just making this up. But I
Right.
can only serve eight,
Yeah.
10 entrepreneurs at a time because I'm an incubator or I'm a program, and my program only can serve 20, and we do 20 per year. Well, now through the hub, you may be able to do 50 or 100
Right.
per year. And
Right.
thus you're able to touch and impact is the word I want to use. You'll be able
Yeah.
to impact from an entrepreneurial service organization side. You'll be able to impact more business owners and entrepreneurs. And then from the business owner side, you're able to secure and access more resources and programs and mentoring, and eventually we're looking at opportunities and funding and things like that. And so we do anticipate the owner having to come into the hub. You would check in,
Mm-hmm.
register, so to speak. You would do some kind of assessment. We haven't gotten that far yet, Sammy, as you
Yeah.
know. But we know that we're going to have our business owners and entrepreneurs complete some kind of assessment that will help us make recommendations to them as to where they should go in the
Yeah.
hub. And then we anticipate the hub having some kind of intelligence that will help us continue to provide data to the hub attendees as to where they should go, who they should use. In addition to that, the platform will allow us to do events, right in there. So you may be able to schedule office hours with someone, or go up to the clubhouse and meet a group of entrepreneurs, and just really be able to move around in a large virtual world. That's like I said, that's the reason why we say that it's living and breathing, is because you're also providing, you, the business owner and entrepreneurs, you're also bringing information back to the hub to
Mm-hmm.
make the hub more valuable to you.
Yes,
So
and more efficient too,
more
right?
efficient.
And
That's a good one too.
yeah, and I really like this. What really struck me as useful was this idea of the hub being also like having this vetting process, right?
Hmm.
In
Hmm.
terms of, because that's what saves time and resources.
Yep.
How many conferences when I started my business that I sit and I'm like, boy, was this waste of time, right? This was
Yep.
more like an infomercial than it was really, right?
Yep.
Something that I could, that has practical, useful information that I can implement now to further my business,
Yep.
right? And
Exactly.
so this is really great, and it's going to be at people's fingertips. That's the beauty of it too, that we're tapping into technology to again remove that barrier of access, because it might be a resource that is in North Carolina, which is one
Hmm.
of the 8 states, right? So what are the 8 states? Just to communicate this, it's
Right.
Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, Georgia,
Tennessee.
obviously,
Right.
Tennessee.
Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Mississippi.
and Mississippi. So those are
Mhm,
the eight. And if all
mhm.
goes well, which we're working very hard on, right? Then the idea is to then say, this works. How can we amplify it,
How
right? How
can we
can other,
amplify it?
yes,
Right.
exactly. So,
Exactly. Exactly. So I think, once we prove it in our in the southeast and in a tight way, and we're operating it long enough to see that it does work, then we'll probably be ready. We hopefully will be ready to, like you say, amplify or
yes,
expand.
yes,
But right
yes.
now we have to prove it, and we'll do
Yes,
it
totally, totally. And so once we prove it, then we can amplify and deploy.
and
I like
deploy.
deployment,
Deploy
deployment.
exactly. Exactly. It's big. It's big, but
Yeah.
big vision is how you get there. So, one of the things I did want to mention about the technology piece is that we really, my platform is technology enabled, technology owned, and I really am focused on helping our companies scale, grow, and scale either by owning your own technology or being enabled by technology. And
Right.
I see the hub as a enabler
Yeah.
to a tech enabled um, um, opportunity, the opportunity for us to enable our companies through technology
Yes.
in a massive kind of way. So,
Right.
yeah,
I think that's really great when you helped us define that was really important because a lot of people listen to Georgia Tech and the business growth hub and virtual and all of that, and they automatically assume that this is that vertical, right? It's technology only, right?
right.
Or that
Nope, nope.
but no, it's tech enabled. It's using
Second name.
technology to be able to grow your
To
business.
grow your business,
Yes,
regardless of
exactly.
what your business is. And another
Exactly.
thing that we wanted, and I know Sammy has heard this over and over again, this is not a hub for tech companies only, and it's not a hub for startups
Yes.
only, right?
Yeah.
We really, because our business center actually focuses, MBDA tends to focus on established companies.
Yes.
And while we have startup initiatives, we really work with the startup community because there's so many resources and programs and things for startup companies. When companies grow to a certain point, we find that then there's a dearth of technical assistance that really moves the needle for companies that say have been in business over 3 years and are generating 3 million to 5 million in revenue, right? And they're trying to get over that hump so that they can grow. And
Mhm.
so, the Business Growth Hub is there to enable all companies from ideation to maturity to
Yeah.
expansion. We want it to be there for everyone, really.
Yes, that's fantastic. Donna, I am so thankful that you took the time, to really have the discussion, because I know that you are so busy and you're like running several programs all the time, managing a whole bunch of people, but I just thought
Thank
that
you.
it was so important to have like this open, just basic, like how do you say, foundational conversation about what it is, so people could understand it and plug into it. That's the
Thank
idea.
you.
We
I
want
really think that,
entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs of color to really plug into this. And I'll
yes,
make sure to include the link to the
yes.
hub on when we post this recording, so that
Okay,
way people can
great.
have easy access to it,
Okay,
because that's one of the big barriers, right? It's
it
access.
is. It's
And so
access.
and
Thank
and so
you.
we want to remove that right from the get-go, so that
Yes,
way if this inspires you, join us. Come
that's right.
join the hub.
That's
Just
right.
come join the hub, and
That's
and
right.
we feel pretty confident already. One year in, we have one more year to go. So
One more year to go.
this is
This
gonna
will
be
be
the
a fast
transformation.
year, so we'll be moving pretty fast through this
I
one
know.
because
I
we really
know.
want to launch the platform, run a small control group to
Yes.
make sure it's working, and then open it up and get it going. Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. I
Thank
am
you so much
so
for inviting
excited.
me, Tammy. I really
Most
appreciate it. I said,
yes.
thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, and I value you. I thank you. And
Mhm.
again, it's such an honor to work side by side, mano a mano with you, working mano a mano together, and it's
Yes,
awesome. I can't wait
yes,
to celebrate and to see you in person.
that's
Hopefully
right.
by next
Hopefully
year. Come on.
soon. Hopefully
Hopefully the
soon.
second year, right, of the
That's right.
convening
That's
can be
right.
face to face, and we can hug it out and
That's right.
celebrate together, right?
That's right.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.